What is going on, Rotogrinders? Dean here. That's Dean 78904. It's not changed. That is the daily fantasy handle around the industry. It's 5:40. Yeah, it's 5:40 today. 7:30 start as far as the games. Of course, that's the East Coast time. 2:40 West Coast, 4:40 Tennessee time. So, of course, I'm time for the flagship show here at Rotogrinders. It is called Grinderslive. Joining me today, we were so good on Friday, apparently. Was it Friday? I'm losing track of days. We're running it back. Keith, the returning champion. Grant, you lost. What's up, Keith? Iceman. You can go by anything. All those words, right? I don't know, man. Keith's the returning champion. You're just kind of like we needed a third guy.
Dean says really it's got to be true.
Yes, because Dean's always correct.
I'm sensing sarcasm by Grant.
It is sarcasm.
Yeah. What's up, Keith? How are things in your world? Are we currently keeping an eye on that fabulous Cleveland Las Vegas football game?
Yeah, absolutely. Fun little Monday night here. An extra football game. Nice little 6-gamer for NBA. I'm a Bears fan, so excited for that game later on against the Vikings.
Are you playing quarterback tonight for the Bears? Because I think they're without everybody in the secondary.
Yes, four starting DBs out. They might need me to suit up. I'm in the area, so.
All right. Well, yeah, there you go. Maybe they'll give you a call. That's going to be. You think Jefferson's going to have a good game? I know that's not what we're prepared to talk about, but I feel like Jefferson's well positioned to crush whatever secondary players.
He's pretty good at catching the football, so yeah, I think he does okay tonight. Yeah.
How are you feeling as far as today's basketball slate? Of course, we lost 3 games. We're down to 6 as opposed to 9. It feels like a bigger slate because there's so many people we're monitoring. Shockingly, there's a couple teams that are actually like fully healthy. Like, Utah is basically fully healthy. Like, you want to count like
OKC
or something like that. Yeah, OKC is fully healthy, which is just weird. And everybody's gone down to OKC's level. Everybody now is kind of like has like G League teams sort of. So yeah. That's a rematch, by the way. That OKC game versus Memphis, that is a rematch of like the shellacking they took last time versus Memphis, where they lost by like 70 or so. So revenge game for OKC. They're very angry. Grant, what are your thoughts as far as the slate tonight? We'll take that the 30,000-foot view, and then of course, we're going to break it down game by game as well.
Oh, I hate it. I love it. I want some more of it. Tried so hard, I can't rise above it.
You don't like it, or you hate it? You like it? You like it? You love it? How's the rest of that go?
I hate it. I love it.
Oh, well, I think
the actual song goes, I like it. I love it. I want some more of it.
Yeah.
Tried so hard.
You saw yourself some Shania Twain, and I guess is she stuck in your head? Is that what's going on? You saw her out there in Vegas, and she's now living in your headspace rent free.
That's actually Tim McGraw.
That was Tim McGraw who sang that?
Yeah.
So you've already blown the game? We talked about a pre-show.
I didn't want to be part of the game.
All right. Well, I asked Grant to throw out as many Shania Twain references as possible organically in the show, and he's already 0 for 1, and the game is over.
Grant bows to no man.
Say it again.
Grant bows to no man, especially Daniel.
Bend the knee, Grant. Bend the knee. All right. We're not going to run through the body parts and all that. We'll do it game by game, obviously. And there's so much stuff up in the air that things are going to change. The conversation's going to change. We'll discuss ownership to some degree, but again, that stuff's going to shuffle. We're going to do our best possible. Got my eye on Twitter as well, and you guys as well. If you see anything breaking in the middle of the conversation, by all means, feel free to chime in. But the first game on the slate we're looking at is one of the big boys as far as body parts we're monitoring. Philadelphia and Boston, 213.5 is the total. Boston currently a 2.5-point favorite. As far as Philadelphia, one of the biggest pieces of news we're waiting for is Joel Embiid. It's not a COVID issue. He's currently dealing with an ankle, so he's questionable. Maxi's questionable. Danny Green, his old hip, is questionable. Furkan Korkmaz is out. Andre Drummond is out, the backup big. So potentially they could be without 2 bigs. We'll talk about that in a second. Shake Milton, of course, is not there, and Gorgui Yang not available as well as far as the Boston side. Horford definitely out. Some of their secondary pieces: Jabari Parker, Josh Richardson, Grant Williams, Juancho Hernan-Gomez, a third-dairy piece, I suppose, if that is a word. They're all out. But Tatum, Schroeder, and Langford are all questionable. I believe, our projections, Keith, have basically all these guys. It's easier to lean in as opposed to lean out when you're doing projections. And of course, we have our if-then stuff, which we can dig into as well. We're assuming Embiid's in. We're assuming Tatum's out. Once we get the news, we'll adjust accordingly. All right, that's a lot of information, and it's a lot of like, well, if this happens, well, if that happens, well, if this happens, but well, what can you do with all that? Because Embiid also different price depending on where you're shopping, much more appealing on FanDuel than he is on DK, assuming he goes. Start with the Philadelphia side and give me both routes as far as Embiid in versus Embiid out.
Yeah, if Embiid's in there, I have interest in him. He would probably be the only one I'm looking to play if he does play. I don't mind the price on DraftKings. You mentioned a better price on FanDuel, but he's certainly playable on DraftKings for me as well. Decent matchup here against this Boston, short on bodies for them. So I think he can smash against anybody. So Embiid would certainly be in play if he's in there tonight. If he's out, I don't know. Danny Green's never a fun guy to roster. I'd probably have to look at Tobias Harris. I think he'd get a decent little bump with Embiid out. But these secondary Sixers guys are not really fun plays to roster mainly. If Maxey played and Embiid was out, I would have interest in him.
I'm pulling up our if them right now because I was looking at it before the show, and I think we chopped up and gave the 48 minutes of center. This is under the assumption that Embiid may be out to the combination of Bassey and Reed. And Bassey has been a really, really good fantasy point minute player, and we're projecting 28 minutes for him. That might be a little bit ambitious, but 28 to Bassey, 20 to Reed. You know, we're looking at 27 fantasy points for Bassey, about 19 or so for Reed. And those minutes probably fragile depending on who starts, who doesn't start. But certainly some big man minutes to go around. Boston without Horford as well too. And we'll talk about the other side, like who's going to stop Embiid. Like Horford's the guy they would normally probably throw on him. I guess they would throw Williams, and that's probably not going to end well for the Boston side. Grant, jump in. What are your thoughts as far as Philly? Answer that to the best of your ability at this point. And you mentioned Harris. Harris, by the way, really, really good play on FanDuel. Either way, I think he's fine at 7K. And if Embiid's out, that's an absolute smash. Grant, what do you have for me as far as Philadelphia?
So if Embiid ends up playing, you play Embiid. If Embiid ends up sitting, then you play Harris definitely on FanDuel and probably play him over on TK. Everyone else is kind of up in the air. Like Maxey ends up playing, that's a huge boost to him. He's very viable on both sides, a very good play. Bassey, I think, is in play if Embiid misses just because of the amount of minutes. Like you said, he can be pretty solid point per minute player. And even if he doesn't end up getting 28 minutes, like if he only gets 20 minutes, he still has a chance to end up making value. So you're playing a decent floor with a fairly high ceiling there. So it's all dependent on all the news. Like Danny Green is not fun to play. If Embiid ends up sitting, then I still don't know if I really want to play him. He's 3.8K. If he makes things work and he's playing and Embiid's out, yeah, go ahead, throw him on in there. But everyone else is the ones that are really viable because Maxey, we have projected for almost 40 points if Embiid ends up sitting. Like I said, Bassey could be playing well over 20 minutes. We don't really know. It's kind of one of those uncertain circumstances. So it's also a guy you want to check out ownership projections on and see where he's at. If he's going to be ultra chalky because we get the news at the first game of the slate, then it's maybe a guy that you want to stay away from just because of the amount of volatility there. But Harris over on FanDuel, just a smash spot if Embiid's out at only 7K. It's just a silly price tag. I don't even hate him if Embiid ends up playing at 7K. It's not terrible, but
yeah,
if he's out, then yeah, just absolutely go with him.
The one that projections may like, and that I'm not going to play, and you guys have mentioned them both, Danny Green. Like I can't see myself. He's such a low.
Projections don't even like him that much.
Is he not playable on DK at 3.8? Is he not? Well, what do we have him projected for? 3.8K, and obviously
22.7.
Yeah, and that's just not going to cut it. And his ceiling is what, 30 if everything goes right for him.
I mean, his ceiling is like 50 if he just starts shooting lights out.
But that's not, well, you can say that about anybody. If an NBA player and professional just starts shooting and then their ceiling is 50.
Well, no, he's hit some 50-point games, I feel like, before.
What? Yeah, in like 2014?
Oh, wait, no, I'm thinking of KCP. I always throw those two together.
Who are you thinking of?
I was thinking of KCP. KCP is a wild one to play.
Keith, are you with me on like I just whatever I want to be under whatever Danny Green's projection is. I can't imagine the scenario where I'm overweight on the Danny Green. I'm getting Danny Green in this slate. I can't imagine playing him a lot.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. I'm going to be underweight wherever he comes in.
All right, the Boston side. Grant, you want to start this one with Boston? Again, there's still a lot of stuff up in the air. We have our eye on Twitter. This is the first game we will know. Tatum being questionable is a big one. If he is out, Jaylen Brown, they've been kind of ramping his minutes up in 32, 33, 34. A lot of usage will shuffle his way. We talked about all the secondary pieces that either out or questionable as well. Williams, if he can stay out of foul trouble, is really interesting. That's a tough ask. Would be easier if Embiid doesn't play. Grant, Boston, what do you have for me?
I have no idea. I mean, if Tatum ends up sitting, then it's kind of a big bump to every single person there. I think Schroeder definitely gets a bump, and he's a guy that's very valuable. Brown, a little expensive over on DK, but I still think that he is playable without Tatum in there just because of the massive usage hole. He's definitely very playable over on FanDuel. If Tatum ends up missing, if Schroeder ends up missing, then probably decent bump to Smart. Both of them are out. Smart's a smash play. I mean, it's just, that both these guys are going to have, they have a massive role in this offense. Like one or both of them missing has a big impact on minutes and usage for pretty much the entire team. So Tatum being the much bigger piece, massive bump to everyone if he ends up missing, at least the main points guys like Schroeder, like Brown and Smart. Both of them end up missing, then, I mean, opens up 48 minutes, or not 48 minutes, like 70 minutes between the two of them. So you have to assume that Pritchard's going to come in if Schroeder's out, and he's going to play a pretty decent role. So either him or Smart are probably going to go off for a pretty good game, potentially both. If Tatum's out, then yeah, like everyone is in a potential smash spot.
I think Brown's becomes a really good spend. I know he's $9K on DK, which seems a little bit expensive for Brown. I feel like his price is a lot better in FanDuel as well. I've said it a couple of times as far as the pricing. Keith, your thoughts?
Yeah, everyone's priced better on FanDuel.
Yeah, I mean, that's generally how it is. But yes, I assume it's like a huge gap. 7-3 on FanDuel for Brown under the scenario that Tatum may be out. Like that's another, it's just absolute smash. Keith, are you okay paying $9K for Brown if Tatum is out? I think you on DK, and for sure you can find value pieces in the slate as well. So even if it's an overspend to some degree, which it may not even be. Yeah, your thoughts as far as the Celtics, if Tatum is in, if Tatum is out, Boston.
Yeah, if Tatum is out, I'd be fine paying $9K for Brown. I think Embiid does matter too. So I'm monitoring that for my Celtics exposure also. If Embiid is out of there, Philly's defense, I think, takes a pretty meaningful hit. And I would be even more likely to jam in some of these Boston guys. If Tatum plays, I don't have a ton of interest. Just sprinkles of a few guys here and there. I mean, I would want a little exposure to Tatum just because he's got a good ceiling. But the rest of them, I probably wouldn't have much exposure. Tatum out, I would be looking for sure. Jaylen Brown, Schroeder, if he's in there for sure. Robert Williams is interesting. I think if Embiid is out and Tatum is out, I would definitely want some exposure to Robert Williams. I think he could have a big game in that scenario.
Yeah, he feels like I'm not one of those people that like freaks out over potential, foul trouble, that kind of thing. But just if he had the guard Embiid, that seems much more likely he would get in the foul trouble. Yeah. So yeah, and of course I'll take my chances in tournaments. Like, why not? Do you want to say what's up to the chat? What up, chat? Hey, YouTube. Hit that like button. Do subscribe. Do turn on notifications. We appreciate all that stuff when it comes to the algorithm. Do chat with us live. Now, where do you chat with us live? You go to rotogrinders.com/Discord and you go to the live stream chat channel. We're in there right now. Producer Devin's in there right now. Grant, you'll be dropping in. I think you'll be dropping in some of your player picks, your player props that you're wagering on with real American dollars. Is that correct?
I'll do that right now.
Don't give them all. You got to kind of get what the beak. You got to kind of tease them a little bit.
Don't tell me what to do. I'm an adult.
Well, yeah, you are an don't give them a whole, because you how many player props have you bet on tonight? Probably like 15, 20, 25. You bet a whole bunch.
I have 19, but 5 of those are alt overs.
Oh, I love the alt overs, man. That's like FanDuel specific, is it not? I think that's where they're mostly those alt lines are.
Yeah, I mean, DK has specials, but FanDuel, I know I'm giving up a little bit by just only looking at them, but it's so darn time intensive with DFS still going on and football still going on that I just don't have the time to look into all the DK specials and everything.
Again, we'll be on later tonight. Myself, Grant, SBK, and producer Devin watching the second half, the Monday Night Football game. We'll be grinding that game for sure, and Grant will be wagering real American dollars as well. Last Monday, feel free to join us. It's a watch party. Grant, you won. I believe you put yourself in an arbitrage situation to win at least 1,000 either way, 2,000 either way, something like that.
Yeah, I think it was 1K if San Diego won, 2.5 Gs if Casey won. Casey obviously won. So I went and bought a nice steak dinner.
And you bought Domino's the next day. That's how you celebrated. I was so angry.
Pizza Hut. Do not blaspheme.
What's the
Pizza Hut has the best marinara on earth.
Italy wants to have a word with you, I'm sure. That
Well,
can't be
Italy's
true.
wrong.
Keith, let me ask you, are you a Domino's truther? Are you a Pizza Hut truther? Are you a support the local pizza joint because for a few extra bucks, it's distinctly better?
I mean, I'm a neither. I'm support the local pizza joint. I grew up around Chicago, so great pizza all over the place.
How every local place doesn't have stuffed crust pizza is insanity to me. Just literally all you have to do is,
I think.
Huh?
My guess is it's not easy to do, and Pizza Hut does it.
It
mass
is.
production.
You literally you put a cheese stick at the end and roll it over it. That's it. That's the entirety of how to make.
Pizza Hut gets like a frozen crust, and it's already the employees aren't doing that, right? I'm guessing it's like a frozen crust that comes with the.
No, but it adds like 3 extra minutes, and I would pay like $5 extra for
it. I love that this is where you want to plant your flag on the pizza joints. Like everybody should specialize. That's what we need is more cheese.
There's a place called Victoria Continental in my hometown that I always go to because they had a stuffed crust pizza.
Flores Mark in the live stream chat says, I literally have pizza coming my way right now. Oh man.
Smart man.
If you're going to have pizza, why not order good pizza? So you're Chicago style. You're deep dish, I assume. Is that, I'm just assuming that because you're from Chicago, like you stick your nose up New York?
No, I mean, I enjoy a good New York slice too, but Chicago has good thin crust also. There's just good food all around in Chicago, so it's hard to go wrong.
Nothing like a Sbarro's New York slice. Whenever you go to New York, for sure, that's the place you want to hit up. Best pizza joint in all New York. We got anything else in this game? I mean, obviously a lot of questionable stuff, and we'll kind of step back to it if news breaks. I mean, Dennis Schroeder is important as well. If he doesn't play for whatever reason, some more usage, some more minutes, some more shots.
It's almost like I went over that.
Yeah, well, I'm just finishing it up, and we're going to move on to the next game. We have 6 games, Grant. We got plenty of time. Also in that chat, feel free to knock out your questions or throw your questions there regarding the slate. What's on your mind? What did we talk about? What do you want us to elaborate on? Tell us what's like. What is it? Is it for FanDuel? Is it for DraftKings? Is it for Super Draft? Is it for cash? Is it for a single entry contest? Keith, I meant to ask you, by the way, what do you we didn't talk about this last time. What do you specialize in? What do you normally do? Are you an MME guy? Are you a big tournament guy? Large field, single entry, 3 entry max? What do you normally play?
Yeah, I mean, I play cash games and single entry and 3 max, but primarily large field player, chasing the big prizes. I don't generally max them out, but I'll have 40 or 50 entries into the bigger contests.
All right, let's move on to game 2 on this 6-game slate. It's Houston. Houston is playing at, I'm doing this off the top of my head because I can't find the page. There, Houston versus Chicago, 222.5 is the total. Chicago is a 6-point favorite as far as who's in, who's out, what we're monitoring. We have KPJ, who's still out, obviously, for the Houston side. Armani Brooks is questionable with his ankle. Chicago, a bunch of dudes are out for Chicago, obviously. Zach LaVine's not playing. Derek Jones Jr., another kind of innings eater, minutes eater, is not playing basketball tonight. I guess you're a Bulls fan, Keith? Yes?
I am, yep.
All right, so talk to me about your Bulls. Alex Caruso, this looks like an awesome Caruso game because like him taking advantage of like not very good ball control, like this turnover happy inexperienced team. This feels like an awesome Caruso game for me. And I know he's kind of chalky on DK, which I don't love because I don't love Caruso chalk, but it feels like one of those games where he puts up like 8, 7, 6, 3, and 2 and just peppers that box score. As far as Chicago, is he one of your favorite plays? Of course, Derozan's going to get a ton of usage. Vukovic as well. It feels like you're supposed to have some Bulls against Houston tonight.
Yeah, really good matchup. Houston plays really fast, so I think they're in a great spot here without LaVine. Caruso, you mentioned, great spot. Houston, plenty of turnovers. He should fill up the box score. I'm with you. I struggle to play Caruso at those ownership numbers, but he's just too cheap for like stepping into a bigger role. So I'll probably be a little bit underweight on DraftKings, but I will have some. I'm not going to completely fade him. Javonte Green is too cheap as well. Should step into a larger role. Vooch is the one that I can't play. He just hasn't had a very good season since he's come over to Chicago. He's had trouble with his shot. Hasn't played great all year. I know theoretically there should be some more usage for him without Levine, but he's the guy I'm going to be underweight on. The guy I want to target the most is Derozan. Saw him put up a big game without Levine in the last one. Had over 50 fantasy points. I love this matchup for him. Should pace up spot for Houston, as I mentioned. I think Derozan just goes crazy here.
Yeah, I mean, Lonzo as well. It looks like an awesome play too. In the minutes, we're looking at 34 for Caruso, which he played 38 last game. Vuk at 34. Lonzo, we're looking at 38 as far as our projection. Double D said DeMar DeRozan at 34. Let me ask you this, Keith, because not a big usage guy, obviously. Javonte Green, when he's going to be on the court, probably like the fifth option, at best the fourth option, depending on. He's super, super cheap. Essentially, the floor, 3.1K. Not a great fantasy point minute guy, not a great usage guy, but he can kind of sort of eke his way there. Is that good chalk or bad chalk? We're currently projecting him at 35%. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on what else opens up. At this moment, I don't hate it. If we get like any other thing, like if you get some Embiid out and you can play Bassey and Philly, I'd much prefer that. So at this moment, he's fine. But I mean, I'm not going to lock him in. Like, there are plenty of ways that he can fail in this spot.
Do you like Kobe White as like a GPP dart? Is he a guy who could potentially, cook off the bench as a sixth man? Or you've seen it sparingly this year. I guess he had that one good game against Orlando, but it hasn't really happened. We've seen it in years past. Last year, I guess we can say.
I think he's still on a pretty tight leash. They've been reluctant to roll him out there for much more than like low 20s minutes. I know they're shorthanded and they might have to throw him out there.
Maxey rolled out. But...
Who was?
Maxey.
Okay. That means they're probably going to get clarification to everybody else, but it's Philadelphia, so maybe they won't. Everybody else is game time probably, but that's interesting. We'll talk about that in a second. Let me ask you this, Keith. If the game is blown out, they're facing Houston, certainly a plausible scenario. Does White mop up? He's one of the mop up guys, right? I guess he has to be. I think.
They just don't have a lot of bodies. But I think they're still concerned about his minutes. I don't know. That's a tough question because I think there is a limit on the minutes that they want to run him out there. But they don't have enough bodies to where, I mean, you'd have to run a starter out there if they capped him at like.
I see 11
25.
guys, Keith. Okay. They got 11 guys, so 5 amongst White, McKinney, Bradley, Dotson, Cook, and Marco. Is that right? Is that probably the mop-up guys?
Yeah. I don't think White can get 30 minutes tonight, I guess is okay. What I'm saying. Like 25, 26, sure, but I don't think he gets up into the 30s.
Grant, your thoughts as far as the Bulls?
All of them. Everyone who's starting. Play them all.
You have a preference?
Yep. Javonte Green is getting a double-double tonight. I don't care about the ownership. Followed by DDR, followed by Vooch, followed by Caruso, followed by Ball. But honestly, there's not a huge gap between any of them. I mean, Green is in a great spot considering his price tag, and he should play mid 30 minutes. This game ends up staying close. Caruso is just far too underpriced there, 5.1K, considering his minutes and his role. Vooch should eat up a ton more usage, considering we don't have Levine in the lineup. Even with DeRozan there, he should do a lot. Lonzo, always a triple-double threat. Going up against Houston, one of the fastest-paced teams in the league. I think they're second, 25th in defensive efficiency. So points are going to be scored. They have a 114.5 implied total, which is the second highest on the slate here. And all their guys in the starting lineup are going to play mid-30s minutes if this game ends up staying close. I do worry about using too many of them in one lineup, considering this game does have a chance of a blowout. But Houston has been a lot better over the last, 10, 15 games than they have in the rest of the season without Kevin Porter in there, without Green in there, who's just absolutely atrocious. They're both really bad. Yeah, they've been an almost decent team. So there's a spot here where I think Houston can actually end up winning. So I'm less worried about the blowout, but I will not be using Houston players unless I am bringing it back on Chicago. So we might as well just talk about Houston for right now. Most of their guys are not terribly interesting. Tate, I think, could potentially be in for a decent game. Wood, always a chance at 40+ points. Garrison Matthews, while I like a lot of his bets tonight, I don't necessarily like his playing him in DFS because he is so reliant on points and he is a little bit streaky. but his price tag 4.8, probably about where it should be considering all the injuries we have and all the news that we could getting. He's probably not going to make up any of my lineups. So mostly it's going to be Wood, Tate, potentially if you need some savings and you can't find someone else. KJ Martin's not the worst idea in the world. He should end up playing mid 20 minutes. But yeah, it's mostly Wood and Tate, I think, are the guys you want to play. And I don't think I'm high on either of them. It'd probably one or the other as a bring back when I'm playing 3 Chicago players.
Thoughts on that side as far as Houston? And also Brooks is questionable. If he doesn't go, maybe like a Christopher would get elevated or something like that, Keith. What do you have as far as the Houston side?
Yeah, it's pretty much just Tate and Wood for me as well. Tate first, sprinkling of Wood. If Brooks is out, I do like Christopher. He's got a nice price tag on DraftKings. I could definitely get to some of him. Probably won't have any KJ Martin, Garrison Matthews. I played quite a bit of him. He's been shooting the ball a lot, but doesn't do much else. So he's got to be hitting his 3-point shot. Really just Tate is the main interest I have here.
Christopher averaging 0.86 DK points per minute. Garrison Matthews, just very, very 3-point reliant. He's got to score, obviously, but he definitely is going to have the opportunity. They're running a bunch of minutes out there for him. I think that's basically it for this game. We shall move on. Grant, did you have any thoughts, or you go back, kind of walk back as far as Maxey being out for the Philadelphia side? And I guess
only matters about the Embiid news.
Yeah, it's still incomplete, right? We're not playing Isaiah Joe. I'm pretty sure we're not playing him. But
I mean, Maxey's definitely a little bit more of a hole for usage in terms of that team. So while it will increase minutes for a few guys at the guard position, Seth Curry is really probably too high priced at 6.5K to consider too much. Isaiah Joe is not someone we're enthralled in playing tonight, even though he should get 30 minutes. He's not going to probably make value barely. So really, it's more of a boost. Huh?
He's got 2 first names. That's something.
Yeah, it is something. But realistically, the biggest bump it gives is to Embiid and Harris. Harris is now an even better play on FanDuel regardless, and I like Embiid more on both sites. But Embiid is really going to be the one that kind of decides everything.
All right, let's move on to the third game on the slate. OKC and Memphis, also 8 o'clock. 215 is the total in this one. Memphis, again, 9-point favorite. We talked about the rematch of the OKC absolute shellacking a few weeks ago. John Morant was upgraded to questionable, and if you were to believe his tweets, his Twitter account this morning, he tweeted out 3 smiley faces, which, I mean, I don't know if you can decipher. Grant, does that, if you were to decode that's maybe you put those 2 things together, maybe he plays, and we might have that situation where he had like earlier this year where, remember when Ball came back for Charlotte and all of a sudden all those guys that are getting extra run, not the same exact thing, but like now everybody else is kind of overpriced to some degree. If Ja comes back, what?
Are they?
Are they overpriced?
Yes.
I mean, well, they're going to be projected for less fantasy points if John Morant comes back. Also, Tyus Jones is questionable as well too, which I think is noteworthy. The OKC side, I figured Tatum would play. He plays all the time. Okay, so Boston becomes less interesting, obviously, and of course you can play Tatum. Like we didn't. I don't know how much of that we said, but like, yeah, sure, you can play Tatum. Not jumping off the page as far as this great value play, but he's got to be in your pool if you're running a bunch of lineups. Grant, how much does it change things as far as Morant potentially coming back? How much does that muck stuff up? I'm going to pull up our if then because I believe we have one of those for this specific situation.
We do, and I mean, obviously the biggest upticks are going to be Tyus Jones by a large margin. Tyus Jones is entirely useless if Morant ends up playing. So Tyus Jones is a cross-off wall. If Morant ends up sitting, Jones really isn't that viable over on DK, but he's viable over on FanDuel. Brooks, Jackson, Bane, all 3 of them are guys that will see a big difference in usage if Morant ends up sitting or if he ends up playing. So if he's sitting, then Bane, Brooks, and Jackson are all still very viable. If I'm ranking, it's probably Bane, then Jackson, then Brooks. But all of them kind of depend on the job Morant news. So I've been hammering Bane points pretty much this entire season. I haven't hit anything yet today.
You're not betting it tonight, right? Because you don't know what to do, and it's hard to read it. Is that?
I mean, I don't even know. It's been off the board pretty much every single time I've checked, and as of right now, so I'm guessing we're getting this news soon. So I'm going to have my phone open with the over on Bane, Brooks, and Jackson. Oh, probably just Bane and Jackson, to be honest.
A lot of times it comes out an hour and a half, like an hour and a half before the official game time. So that might come out in 20 minutes, Grant. So kind of be alert for that at 6:30 on the East Coast. Do you have thoughts on that, Keith? And again, there's a chance that both Ja and Jones are out. That's possible too. That's a scenario. They're both officially questionable right now. And then the OKC side, feel free to touch on that because everybody's healthy for OKC. And there's nothing that really excites. I mean, are there paths for SGA to get there? Sure. Giddey, sure. Almost got himself a nice triple-double last game. I think he just missed it. Or maybe he just got it. I don't think he got it. He was close. He had a bunch of rebounds, like 16 or 17 or so. Kind of an anomaly for him. But there's certainly a ceiling there. What do you have for this game? And I guess, again, Keith, it's just sort of a wait-and-see mode as far as Ja and Jones specifically.
Yeah, definitely have to wait on the news. If Ja is in there, I don't have much interest here. I think the risk of blowout is increased. We don't know if Morant would be on a minutes restriction or how many minutes he would play. It just kind of mucks up the whole situation. So if he's in there, I'm probably out on the Memphis side. If he's out, then I have plenty of interest. I think the ceiling on Jackson, Bane, and Brooks specifically are all very good. I think Jackson would be my preferred play of the three. I like Brooks and Bane fine. Bane a little scoring dependent, but he can score very well. And then Brooks gets all the usage, but struggles with his shot at times. So Jackson just my preferred of the three. For the OKC side, you mentioned everybody kind of in there. I don't know. They're just not exciting to play. You can take shots on SGA. That's really the only one I would have interest in. Maybe Giddey, but I think if you were playing multiple guys from Memphis, you would want SGA on the other side. I think he's the way that this game does stay close.
Ownership projection right now, looking at FanDuel for the OKC side. We do have 18% for Giddey, SGA at 14%, and then it falls off a table like Dort, like at 1%. As far as DK with this OKC side specifically, the biggest ownership number currently at SGA as well at 17%. Ken Rich Williams at 6'8". Like, I just don't like playing the whack-a-mole, like random OKC guy, and I just don't know how necessary that is. Grant, your thoughts as far as the OKC side? Are you intrigued, or is it just basically a meh to a nah wave?
I think they're actually more viable if Morant ends up coming back. Morant's not a great defender, and the Grizzlies have been much better on the defensive end without Morant, the offense there. Yeah. So as of right now, I have Seth Curry will start at point guard. As of right now, I have a moderate amount of interest in SGA just because he can go off in any given game. It's definitely a bigger bump if Morant ends up playing. Giddey and Dort, I think, are tournament flyers, more Dort than Giddey, but I don't mind either of them. It's just all dependent on that Morant news because, I mean, it's been tough to kind of use him as a bring back because you really don't want to use anyone outside of Jackson over on the Memphis side of things if Morant ends up coming back.
By the way, the Curry price is bad, but like he is going to be is he the main ball handler on this team?
Yeah, like, he's more interested. I still don't have any interest in him unless Embiid is ruled out.
5'8" on FanDuel, better than 6'5" on DK. Of course, you do get that half-point bonus when he hits his threes. Keith, like we got to assume though, Curry's holding the ball a good bit with Shake being out and I forgot the Maxey being out. I mean, I suppose Isaiah Joe is. We joked at the backup point. I suppose is that. Thibel's not a guy. He's just a 3-and-D guy with a rough three. Danny Green's not. I can't imagine being like the main ball handler. Just a thought. Like it's a bad looking price on the surface, but maybe it's better than not as awful. How about that, Keith? For Curry,
not as awful. I think not as awful is a good way to put it. I'm not excited about it. He's so inconsistent. He's fine, but. He's not somebody I would be actively like seeking out, saying I gotta get a ton of Seth Curry.
No,
Embiid and
he's
Green
not.
Still questionable.
Yeah, I'm shocked. When are we gonna get the Embiid news? The official Embiid news that for a 7:30 game? When is that gonna happen? When's that gonna crack?
7.
I'll take the over.
I don't know which way is the over.
Over 7. 7:01.
Okay.
7 and 1 second. That's the over. All Also, do want to invite you all, if you're just joining us now, what up, YouTube? Hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications. If you want to ask us a question, you're like, hey, where's the chat box? The chat box is at rotogrinders.com/Discord. Go to the live channel. Oh, there's a more specific name for that, which I have to find for some reason. What is the name of this channel? Live stream chat.
Live stream chat.
Yes. Devin is compiling your questions, whatever is on your mind. Grant is throwing in his favorite player props there. Doesn't cost you anything. It's a free Discord channel to join. There are some premium ones here at RG. Are they winners or losers this time? What are you throwing in, Grant? What are you giving the people?
Total over 8.5 rebounds and 10+ rebounds.
So now I don't have to go join the Discord because you just told me.
That was just 2 of the 7 I've put in so far. And the ones I've thrown in Discord have roughly a 40% ROI at this point.
I'm getting ragged on in the chat. Yeah, I forgot the name of it. I just temporarily the old brain fart. Let's move on. Let's talk about some more basketball games. Still 3 more left on the docket. Charlotte versus Utah. 237.5 is the total. That is a monster number.
When was the last time you saw a team with a 125 implied total?
That's a good question. I feel like it was probably like, well, I don't know. I know. I'm trying to think what we.
I would assume it was some team versus Washington last season.
Yes.
Closer to the beginning where they were like a 10-point favorite.
That's a good call. Yeah. So the Utah side certainly getting bumps. We know Charlotte plays super fast. They play poor defensively. I feel like, Keith, I'm going to go to you with this one. I was looking at this one. Charlotte and Utah, by the way, have been number 1 and number 2 offensive efficiency in the season. So Utah has been the number 1 most offensively efficient team in the season, and Charlotte the worst defensively. So we have the best offense versus the worst defense, and that's kind of what happens when you plug that stuff in. That's how you get a 125 total. Generally speaking, with Utah, it's like, well, I just don't play these guys for the most part. Nothing really pops unless the price is whatever. It's kind of wonky, but Utah's just generally, they just play their guys, their standard minutes, and they all kind of are fine. They don't break the slate. They don't lose it for you. But when you face Charlotte, we're grading on a curve. That said, how do you feel about the Utah pieces in this slate?
I have a ton of interest in Rudy Gobert. Mason Plumlee is back, but I believe he's still on a minutes restriction. We're not expecting much more than 20 minutes from him. I don't know who else is going to stop Gobert on this Charlotte team. They just don't have a ton of size. And Gobert should be able to do pretty much whatever he wants. Rebound props are at like 15.5 for him. He's going to smash tonight. You mentioned the pace of this game too, lack of defense. Mitchell is fine. I think I prefer Gobert just because of that size advantage that I talked about. But there's certainly a path where Mitchell could explode and have a really nice game. The secondary pieces on Utah, I never like playing any of these guys. There's so many of them. They all get their minutes. They're all fine, but none of them really have a huge ceiling. So I'm not going to tell you I don't want to play any of them, but I'm not excited to play any of them.
Grant, Utah?
I actually really like Mitchell more on FanDuel than over on DraftKings. Definitely price tag is better there. He's really priced up on DraftKings, but 125 team total for Utah. Like, I get it that he hasn't really paid off this price tag for the majority of the season, only like 1 or 2 games. But he's going up against Charlotte. He's going to be very unowned. Like, everyone's going to go with other guys as their spend up. I do have some interest in Mitchell. I think Gobert is fine. He's more of a guy that, like, I worry about the game staying close because he obviously relies on a whole lot more than just points. So minutes are going to be a big concern where Mitchell, even if they end up blowing him out, then he probably ended up getting there in terms of points. So I'm higher on Mitchell than most people are. I think I wrote him up in expert survey as my favorite GPP play just because, like, it's Charlotte. And then on the Charlotte side, I want no piece of anyone. They're all still priced up. Like, even without Hayward, you're not getting any real value on any of these guys.
Yeah, Hayward is, doubtful. Cody Martin's out, and still, like, the prices have not fully adjusted. Of course, the matchup is bad. And you kind of referenced it, Grant. I don't freak out when I'm making tournament lineups. I don't freak out like, oh my God, I made a blowout. But back-to-back in Utah. It just feels like a scheduled blowout. We talked about how Utah is the best offensive team versus the worst defensive team. It just feels like Utah is going to wallop them. What is the line's 12.5 or 13? I hate laying that number in the association, Grant, but I think Utah just throttles them. What's the line there officially? 13?
12.5. And I'd say there's about a 50-50 chance.
You're a gambling expert, right? That's a hell of a call there. It's takes like that make you the third greatest sports gambler alive. You finished, you win $250,000, whatever it was, in the sports gambling championships. Keith, are you with us as far as Charlotte? You're not waving it, or like, are you playing, hey, the what if game? Like, what if this game does stay close? What if Hayward and Martin are out? Well, they're most likely out. Well, Martin out, Hayward doubtful. No revenge game for Gordon Hayward. Are you running it back with anybody in Charlotte?
I'm mostly not waving it. I think LaMelo is the one guy I would have interest in. Like Oubre and Rozier, Washington even are all still a little bit too pricey. Bridges, because of the time without Ball and Rozier. LaMelo is the one guy that I feel like has a monster ceiling, and if the game was going to stay close, it would be because of him. So LaMelo, and it's not like massive interest, just a sprinkle in large field tournaments.
All right, 2 more games to knock out before you step aside and get out of here. Got 10 minutes to do it. Make way for crunch time. If you guys are premium members, you know that goes down. You get $10 off your first month of RG Premium. Devin will go ahead and drop that link there in the Discord for y'all. Sacramento, speaking of blowouts, Sacramento and Golden State, 222 is the total. Golden State is a 13-point favorite here. Now, Golden State is missing their 2 best, their second and third best pieces. Wiggins being out, Poole being out as far as usage I'm talking about. I'm not saying they're better than Draymond Green as far as winning basketball games. So there are some minutes to go around. The tricky part, of course, is that Golden State, they don't care about this game against Sacramento. Anybody in a uniform is allowed to play. If you're on Steve Kerr's team, they're going to probably play like 11, 12, 13 guys, whoever's available. And if this game gets out of hand, which it certainly might, because Sacramento's terrible and they're without some dudes as well. So Keith, how are we handling this? Of course, Curry's another one of those deals where on FanDuel, he's the cheapest he's been all season long. On DraftKings, he's still a full 11.8, which he really has not paid that off very often. Just kind of seems a little bit overpriced. Doesn't mean you can't play him in tournaments. You can always hit 10 threes. Talk about the Warriors.
Yeah, it's really Curry is the only one I have a ton of interest in. He's way too cheap on FanDuel, like you mentioned. The ownership is going to follow right along with that. And he hasn't shown a huge ceiling here recently. Obviously, better chance to get more usage here. I don't know how much he's going to have to do, though. So I'm hesitant to play him on FanDuel with that ownership. On DraftKings, where he's priced up, I think that makes a little bit more sense because you get him at a much better ownership number. If he has the big game, you get paid off a little bit better than on FanDuel. Porter and Iguodala, guys like that, they're fine values, but I'm not sure what their ceiling is. Draymond is priced fine. Just not a ton of interest. It's Curry for me, and I struggle with the ownership number on FanDuel.
Yeah, we saw Iguodala get up to 24 minutes last time. You played 25 earlier in the season. Like, he's an old man, and he's worth having a roster spot, but they don't need him to do anything. Specifically this game. Porter, you mentioned as well. Another one of those guys they've kind of like monitor his minutes. He's another guy that could draw the start. We saw him get up to 25, 26 earlier in the season, and that's not bad at 3.7K on DK. I think Kuminga is another one that could be interesting. He's been pretty good fantasy point minute guy, and maybe he's a guy who plays 25 minutes or so. And Gary Payton could draw a start for all we know. I don't know, Grant, as far as the favorite secondary pieces on Golden State, but again, there are 60 plus minutes to go around with the absence of Poole, the absence of Wiggins. But again, there's just so many different guys looking for a slice of that pie that I don't know how much it's going to matter.
Yeah, no, it really doesn't matter too much. I mean, realistically on this slate, we should have tons of value, although Morant is on track to play, by the way. Just got that tweeted out. So we'll end up seeing, and we'll see what his minutes limit is. But as soon as that news came out, I put a bet on the under on Brooks points, rebounds, and assists.
I like that. Yeah. Bet all those guys under on the Memphis side.
Yeah. I didn't have time to, otherwise I would have.
You got to smash this stuff, Grant. You got to be on top of it.
Well, I was specifically ready for him to be ruled out, having 4 bets ready, the over on Brooks or the over on Bane and Jackson, both points, rebounds, and assists and points. And so obviously you have to be quick on the other side. So I told
you about Ja's tweet though, man. He's not going to tweet smiley faces when he's not going to play.
I mean, yeah, but sometimes it's not his decision.
Grant, you have a favorite like secondary piece amongst Kuminga, amongst Porter, Iguodala? Is
Iggy.
any of those?
Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
Porter followed by Iggy. Both of them are just a little bit too cheap.
So the Sacramento one is interesting because I don't freak out over potential blowouts, but this game can absolutely get out of hand. Would not surprise any of us if it does. Sacramento's playing on the back end of a back-to-back in Golden State. Feels like a scheduled, loss again. And we're seeing massive ownership, Grant, massive ownership, justifiably so.
Well, maybe it's time to talk about Prize Picks.
Oh, well, okay. Do you have some Prize Picks winners for the people?
I believe me and Keith both have them. Mine was Halliburton over 7.5 assists, Vooch over 20.5 points, Garrison Matthews over 12.5 points, which you ha-ha'd like a dum-dum. Yeah, you, Keith.
You don't have time for this, Grant. You don't have time. We're on a time crunch.
Yeah, we are on a time crunch. What time do you think the show ends?
5 minutes.
Wrong.
Grant, we're spending our last 5 minutes really.
No, it's not 5 minutes. We have 15 minutes.
No, I think it's Devin. Let me know my ear, Devin, because I think it's 5.
What do you want, team?
Oh, so we do the show at a different time. Oh, I'm so confused. I was trying to rush the last minutes. Now we can go back and forth.
There's a reason why I didn't correct you when you said it.
You could tell that. Okay, so you can tell that. Oh, I even threw it out there. I did some bad UCF math in my head. Okay, so the whole time I'm like, because I know when we get off the air and we start at 5:10. It's like, okay, we get off the air. We start at 5:20, right? Now I don't even know. It doesn't matter because the 7:30 time thing is throwing me off. Obviously, I'm officially rattled. Keith, I'm going to ask for your winners as well from a Prize Picks perspective. But hey, if you guys have not played a Prize Picks just yet, go ahead and use the promo code Grinders. That's GRINDERS with your first deposit for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. Keith, see Grant's mediocre picks and raise them. Give him some good ones.
All right. Well, I've got Halliburton over assists as well. Love that number at 7.5. He's been crushing that with Fox out. Talked about Derozan's situation with Levine out and that awesome matchup against Houston. I like him over 43.5 fantasy points. Talked about Gobert's matchup as well. Charlotte doesn't play any defense, lacks size in the front court. I've looked at his rebound prop. It was sitting at 15.5. He probably goes over that, a bit of an uncomfortable number. I'm going to play the over 42.5 fantasy points just so I have a couple of extra outs. If for some reason the game does blow out and he doesn't get full fourth quarter run, I think he has a couple ways to get there with the 42.5 fantasy points. And then Steph Curry, we were just talking about him, another great matchup against Sacramento with Poole out. He sees a usage bump and he's projecting over 50 fantasy points for us at RG. Found the line at 48.5. I think he can get over on that.
Dennis Schroeder available to play, by the way, just throwing that one out there as well. And you guys mentioned Morant on track to play also. So Keith, let's have this conversation as far as Sacramento. DraftKings specifically, ownership, Tyrese Halliburton. He's going to, assuming this game doesn't get goofy, doesn't get squirrely, 38 minutes for projection for Tyrese Halliburton. He's running the show, man. He's been the guy. And that price at 7K is awesome. I know Golden State's the best defensive team in basketball, or 2 or whatever. It's top 3, top 4 on the Family Feud board. On the Family Feud board. We have Metu. Now, this is another one that's DK. This is the reverse. He's 4.7 on DK, but he's like 6K on FanDuel, where he's only center eligible. So only really interested in him on DK, for me at least. Worth noting, Rashawn Holmes may come back tonight. He is questionable with his eye. Buddy Hield looking at 23% ownership for Hield. Halliburton at 41. Metu at 38. Barnes at 15. So this game could get goofy. If this stuff is all chalky and Sacramento studs only play, I use studs loosely. They only play like 3 quarters. How are you handling this from a tournament perspective? Because there's a very real chance that happens. And Halliburton only plays like 30 minutes. We've seen it before. We've had line changes. Like they just said, screw it. These guys all stink. Let's get them all out and bring in some new ones that are bad too. But what are you going to do? Talk about the Kings.
Halliburton's the one that I struggle to fade. I know the ownership number is way up there, but the dude's been awesome without Fox in there. You said it. He's running the show. And he was over 50 fantasy points in his last one. He's been over 40 in 3 straight. And against Washington, he didn't even score that much. He just had 8 rebounds and 9 assists to go with it. Like, he's filling up the stat sheet. I think there's multiple ways he can get there. I think even if he doesn't get full fourth quarter run, he's going to pay off this $7K price tag on DraftKings. Maybe a little more difficult conversation on FanDuel at 7.7, but I'll still have plenty of him. Metu is DraftKings specific, like you mentioned. I think that 6K price tag is difficult on FanDuel. Don't mind the fade at all. And Buddy Hield finally smashed in his last game, but he was a guy that I had been fading up to that point, and that was working out really well. He was just struggling for a good stretch there. He is still really cheap, though, for a guy who theoretically is going to play mid to upper 30s at minutes. That price tag is too cheap. So still on the fence about what to do with Hield because that price tag is so attractive. I think I'll probably end up overweight on him, but go ahead.
2 more. What about Harry Barnes? And what about if Holmes is out? Are you interested in Tristan Thompson?
I have interest in Barnes. Don't love it. He's in that same conversation as Hield. Like if the salary fits and I don't have a ton of other Kings in my lineup, maybe I use him in that. Thompson, I think I'm out. I'm trying to figure out these big guys on the Kings. It's been a nightmare of a rotation. I don't want to chase Tristan Thompson anymore. I think I'm out.
He doesn't feel like a great fit to play against Golden State either. Just like in my head, just thinking about that game environment. I don't know, but he's really cheap still in some places. And if Holmes is out, there could be, clearing for some minutes. There's still Jones lurking, another big body. Again, Golden State is happy to go small as well. Grant, how are you handling the Kings? Because again, and I'm jumping over to FanDuel now. We're looking at 40% ownership on Halliburton, 40% on Buddy Hield at 5.1K, which is such a good price. He is scoring dependent, but he's also a guy that can score like just 30 points and just smash that, that asking price. Grant, the Kings, what do you have for me?
That too. Halliburton. Halliburton's probably my favorite play on the slate if you don't include ownership. Still going to play him regardless. Metu is too cheap at 4.7. I bet the over on is points plus rebounds. Hyde is going to shoot a lot, and I don't mind playing Barnes. And if Holmes ends up playing, he's definitely a guy that's in play. But Hyde, Metu, and Halliburton are the main guys. And if you're fading them, then you probably want some Barnes or Holmes, hoping that they are the ones then getting it done. But yeah, Halliburton is going to triple double tonight.
6.6 on Holmes for FanDuel, 6.2 on DraftKings. I mean, it's not a conditioning thing. It's just it was his eye, and he's been out for what, like maybe 4 or 5 games or something like that. I assume he basically gets his normal run. Is that a fair assumption, Keith? Or maybe 31, 32 minutes for Holmes? That's not about right, assuming barring foul trouble and blowout and all goofiness.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. I've got some interest at that price.
Let's talk about the hammer. This is a chisel, right? San Antonio versus the Clippers. Actually, it's a dual prong hammer. They're both 10 o'clock games. The Sacramento game, as well as the San Antonio Clipper game. 217 is the total. The Clippers are currently 5-point favorites in this game as far as what we're monitoring, who's in, who's out. San Antonio, fully healthy. Dougie McDermott, despite the fact he's got that tooth, he's probable. Everybody else healthy and good to go on the San Antonio side. Clippers, we know that the big one is Paul George, who's dealing with that elbow. He's questionable. It seems like he's getting close. Maybe he comes back tonight. I don't know. Of course, if he comes back, usage and everybody else gets shot to some degree. Serge Ibaka expected back tonight, but they're without Hartenstein. One big man is out, and Marcus Morris, he's out too. So 2 big men are out. Ibaka is 3K on DK, Keith. Like, I don't know how frisky you want to get, and I don't know how many minutes they would give him, but I don't know how much you need that. But I was just sort of staring at him like that could be interesting, maybe, but I don't know. Maybe just Zubac is good, and who knows what happens with Paul George. And we're not going to know. Like, we won't have the news, right? This isn't coming out in the next hour or two. It's going to come out mid-slate, right? I think.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get it anytime soon. I'm probably out on the Clippers unless George misses. I don't want to play Ibaka. I like some of the other cheap guys we talked about. Zubac, don't love that one either. So if George is out, then I'd want to get some Reggie Jackson. I'd be more interested in Zubac at that point, and then I'd look at guys like Terrence Mann, maybe Luke Kennard, but that price tag has come up on him a little bit. I don't have a ton of interest in the Clippers.
Like, even if George is out, like, I mean, you're not going to, like, your lineups won't be crippled if you don't have 7.6K Reggie Jackson on DK. Like,
Right.
you could survive that, I think. I can't imagine. I suppose you could put up like a 45 or so, but it's unlikely. Better price on FanDuel at 6.1K. Grant, what are your thoughts here as far as the Clippers? And again, like, I agree. If George is in, it's hard to like much. If he's out, like yeah. And then in the San Antonio side, fully healthy, you can always play Murray, of course, but nothing amazing on the San Antonio side, right?
Yeah, no, just really like Murray's pretty low on my list of guys to play, so I'm just fading this game unless what's his name is ruled out, unless George is ruled out.
Got some questions being compiled here from Dev, and he's pulling them. Where is he pulling them from? The Discord channel, rotogrinders.com/Discord. And what's the name of that channel that we forgot earlier on the show? It's Live Stream Chat. That is a free one. Fire it off. We got 5 minutes left before we step aside and make way for crunch time on the actual rotogrinders.com website. But did you have anything? I'm sorry, Kate, I didn't ask you about San Antonio, but I just kind of asked Grant, and he sort of now waved it. And is there anything that pops for you on San Antonio that you have to have, or that you even imagine getting some sprinkles of at least?
Nothing I have to have. I'll play a little bit of Murray just because he's shown a nice ceiling. I don't have any interest outside of Murray.
All right. So, do you have a favorite game stack tonight, Keith?
I like Curry on the other side of the Sacramento. That's going to be super popular. I think, I don't know. If Charlotte's prices weren't so difficult, I would want some Gobert with some Charlotte guys on the other side. Don't love that either. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think you need a game stack. There's just dynamics of each of the games where it's kind of difficult to make the case. I think, honestly, if Embiid misses, it probably becomes Boston, Philly. But I think Chicago, Houston, as it stands right now, would be the one. If I had to pick like multiple pieces from each side, that I would go with.
I was thinking like Curry and like 3 Kings maybe is something you can do.
That I do like. Yep.
Or maybe like one of the peripheral pieces, like one of a Kuminga or a Porter or an Iguodala, like one of those guys, or maybe 2 of those guys. You only need Curry. Like, obviously he's great, but yeah, if this game stays close, you got to assume the Sacramento side is doing good and Curry probably doing his thing. Grant, you have a favorite game stack?
Probably Chicago.
Yeah. Some questions from the chat. I'm going to go ahead and start with you, Keith. DK GPP thoughts on Otto Porter. Lineup HQ has him as a 4th highest smash percentage, which, I mean, I wonder, what are we giving him? 25 minutes or so? What are we giving for Porter? That's an interesting number for smash percentage.
Yeah, we have him at 27 minutes right now. He's super cheap. I mean, that's where the smash percentage is coming from, but I don't know that there's a ton of upside even at 3,700. I'm less hot on it than the projection shows. I mean, usually those numbers are numbers I'd look to play in tournaments. 37% smash is very good. I just don't know if I don't like the Porter play very much. Great matchup, obviously, but not a guy I like.
I think
he
starts. Much. I don't know how much it matters, but like he's probably going to get his 20 or so minutes at 20 to 28 minutes, whatever it is. Do you think he starts? Do we have projected to start? I don't think so.
Dream on.
We do. We have Curry, Peyton, Porter, Green, and Looney, but it wouldn't surprise me if like Kuminga started or Toscano Anderson started or Lee. They're all going to play.
Yeah, I mean, it's the price is what's making those numbers pop for sure. He is cheap.
Grant, speaking of those Warriors, Roto Hodor has a question for DK tournaments. Low stake, single entry. Does anyone like Kuminga over Otto? I think that's an interesting pivot, especially if that ownership is correct, because Kuminga's a good fantasy point minute player, and they seem to like him, and it seems like an opportunity to play him. I don't think he needs that much to get there. Well, what are your thoughts there, Grant?
I'm not a fan of it.
No? Okay. Well, this is another question they asked for you specifically, Grant. DK tournaments, does Grant like Justice Winslow if Paul George is out? Like, I can't imagine.
I mean, he's fine, but it's largely dependent on if we get Embiid news and we get a lot of value there. I mean, you're probably reaching a little bit considering all the other value that's on the slate.
I mean, he had his best game of the year last time out. He played 26 minutes against OKC, put up 24 fantasy points, took 7 shots, grabbed 9 boards. Like, do you have a thought on Justice Winslow, Keith? I can't get excited about that.
No, I can't either. No one. Yeah, no thanks.
Keith, DKGPP, Buddy Hield. He scares me on a back-to-back versus Golden State. Give me a pivot. This is from Yappy. He wants a pivot away from Buddy Hield. So somebody has similar price point. DraftKings specifically.
DraftKings.
Yeah, I'll give you a second with that, and I'll ask Grant. Give me a bold fade tonight, Grant. Is there somebody you think that for whatever reason the ownership's too high and you want to be lower than it?
See, pulling up ownership. I guess Steph over on DK is probably a little bit too high at 22.3.
And that's just because we have the money for it, right? It's like not a good value, and raw points matter.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'll just play him over on FanDuel and fade him over on DK.
I meant to mention, by the way, Tyler Johnson was picked up. Remember Tyler Johnson for the Heat? He was a thing. Yep. He was picked up by Philadelphia. I meant to mention that. Yeah, he's not available tonight. He's not going to be making his debut. So he could have been one of the point guards that they could actually use him wherever they found him. SGA, Dort, Giddey, and Robinson, Earl, and Favors. Did they ever start Robinson, Earl, and Favors together? I feel like this doesn't happen very often. That is the starting lineup today for OKC. Do you have an answer for me, Keith?
Yeah, if you can find the $200, Harry Barnes is a fine pivot. Same team. Tyus Jones is 1 for 1. He's still questionable, so keep an eye on that. Otherwise, I'd look at saving some money and going down to Caruso at 5-1.
You don't think Ja kills Tyus Jones?
Yeah, he probably does. Yeah. So if you can't get up to Barnes, I'd go down to Caruso. Then would be my answer.
All right, that is the show. Do appreciate y'all hanging with us. Hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications. NFL Showdown game, Showdown slate conversation starting at 7:30 on the East Coast. It takes you right into Grind the Line. We said that we still go watch the game. Me, Grant, SBK, producer Devin, and Grant is wagering thousands of dollars, and he's been winning. He's been successful. Good for him. And you guys can tail him. He tells you guys what he is betting live in game. It's fun times. We got to step aside and get out of here and make way for crunch time. That was Keith. That was Devin producing. That was Grant. That was basketball. That was Dean. We're out of here. Hold it.
Hey, kids.